A cochlear implant is not a hearing aid. It is an electrical man-made device that is specially made for people who have severe to profound hearing loss. It is FDA approved for children. It has two components. There's an internal component that I put in surgically that basically enables us to electrically access the cochlea, and an external component that looks similar to a traditional hearing aid that they wear, and that has a battery that lets them basically get sound from the outside and transmit to the inside to the internal component, and then they learn with therapy to hear sound as you and I recognize sound.
We had first found out Jesse was deaf when he was born. He failed his newborn hearing screen, but we weren't that worried about it because they had told us that it was probably the equipment, not to worry about it. But we did have a follow-up hearing appointment afterwards just to make sure everything was okay. So when he was about 6 months old, we went for the follow-up hearing test, and they told us that he had failed it, but it was probably fluid. Again, don't really worry. Don't read too much into it. So we had tubes put in his ears, thinking it's going to be fixed. He had fluid in his ears. Went back for another hearing test with the tubes, and he failed. And that's when we started thinking there's something going on. He has some sort of hearing loss. But we had no idea that it would turn out to be he was completely deaf.
So Jesse then had his right cochlear implant done March of 2013, and he has just flown. It's been amazing. He has surpassed every expectation we've had for him, to the point that his parents asked me, can we just work on auditory communication, meaning speech, with him? And I said, absolutely.
What we typically will do is when a child comes in for reprogramming, we will take them into the sound booth and we will do testing based on their age. We use toys, we use visual reinforcement, and we're going to try and determine how they can hear across the frequency range. So we'll use speech signals, we'll use different tones, we'll do low frequency information and high frequency information, and we'll see how they're actually responding to the sounds with the cochlear implant. And based on that, that will guide us as to what type of additional programming we need to do, whether we need to turn the device up, whether we need to manipulate the different frequency ranges, and it guides us in our programming. Okay, so what we're doing now is we're trying to see what levels he can hear at with the cochlear implant. And we're training him to put the peg into the pegboard when he actually hears the sound at very soft levels. So what we're doing now is we're just going through a training procedure. And he's waiting for the sound.
Not yet.
Let's see. Bop, 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 bop. Bop, 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 bop. So there he's hearing something. He's trying to learn, when am I supposed to put it in?
Good job. He said good job. Okay, here.
So he heard the speech sound, and he's going to put the peg in there. And you notice how he repeated what the person in the booth said to him. Good job. And right now he's actually repeating what we say. So I said, ah, ah, and he repeated, ah, ah, and then he put the peg into the pegboard. He's thinking about it.
Good job, Jeff.
There he goes. See, he smiled, and he wanted some recognition that he heard it, so he's going to put the peg into the pegboard.
Do you hear that?
So you notice how he looks up at the person with him, and he's trying to repeat the sound.
Yes, good job.
And what we're actually doing is we're testing different speech signals that encompass the frequency range of speech. So we'll be able to tell over a large frequency range what he's actually hearing. Play audiometry is a type of testing that we use with younger children who cannot yet be trained to raise their hand in response to a sound. So we'll actually train them to respond with toys when they actually hear the sound. So it may be dropping a block in a bucket, or putting a peg in a pegboard, or stringing beads, anything like that that interests the child. And we'll train them to actually respond to that when they actually hear an auditory stimulus. And it guides us in programming. It also tells us how they're hearing along the frequency ranges. So now she's trying to train him that there is a sound that comes out of the speaker. And when the sound comes out of the speaker, a toy will light up. And now he's beginning to understand what the process is. He's actually performing very well. He was responding to near normal levels in the sound booth when we initiated play audiometry. Now that is his detection only. So the next step really is to increase his discrimination abilities, and that's his understanding of sound. And that will come over time as he works in a therapy situation on a daily basis in his local school system or with his local therapist. And as he continues working with the therapist, he will continue to come back here where we can actually monitor his responses. After we did the testing in the sound booth and we were able to tell what levels he was hearing at and what frequencies he was hearing at, we can come back into the programming room and reprogram his device and give him additional loudness levels if needed, and shape the frequency gains at different frequencies as needed. That will give him a little bit of boost, and hopefully he will be able to detect all of the different speech sounds at near normal hearing levels.
Dada? Where's Dada? 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 Truck. Truck. It's like he tries so hard now because he knows now that we communicate with sound, and he wants to do that. And before, to get our attention, he would have to come up to us and tap us on the shoulder. And now, you know, he will attempt, Mama, Dada. And it's just to know that he knows that I have a name and that he has a name. It's just, I can't describe it. It's just awesome. It's so awesome. It's a total different world for him.